Hello, I am Sherry Sidoti-Rego, and I'm going to be offering a Yin Yoga class today. So what you may want to have with you is a blanket or a beach towel, some thicker fabric that you can kind of roll up or use underneath your seat for comfort, as well as either a yoga block or something that could raise part of you or that sits about 6 to 8 inches above the ground, and then either a yoga bolster or a pillow. And we may not use all those, but for the yin practice, it's good to have them nearby just in case you decide to use them. Okay, so you can take a moment to get yourself all set up and I'll meet you back here. Okay, great. So let's meet on our mat with our props nearby. Move this out of the way. And if it's more comfortable for you, you may want to take your blanket or your yoga prop, your towel or something to sit on, to lift your seat up a little bit higher than the floor. That usually makes it a little bit more comfortable on the hips or on the low back for sitting. And again, I'll just reintroduce myself. I am Sherry Sidoti-Rego. I teach and live on Martha's Vineyard. And I offer yoga classes as well as a yoga teacher training here. So my website is sherrysidoti.com, and I hope to meet you over there. So for the Yin Yoga practice, for those of you who may or may not have practiced Yin before, is a slow, deep, meditative, mostly low to the ground practice. It's deeply healing on an emotional level, but also healing for our joints, our tendons, our ligaments, some of the areas of the body that don't necessarily get honed in on or get deep focus in our quicker paced yoga practices like hatha or vinyasa. And there are 4 primary tenets to the yoga practice, the Yin Yoga practice. The first is that we spend some time in each posture. So we typically will spend between 2 and 4 minutes in each pose. And the reason for doing that is that it takes a little while for our muscular patterns to depattern and for other things to begin to happen there. So the way that we use our body and our muscles, habits are formed by repetition, and repetitive movements have created some instinctual, habitual things that patterns in our body. And it takes about 2 to 3 minutes for a muscle to completely release. And that's what we're looking for in the Yin practice. We're looking to get a little bit away from our muscular effort and allow gravity to take us a little closer to the earth and see what happens when we're not kind of muscling our way through our practice, see what other things can be tended to or addressed. So that's the reason for staying in the poses for as long as we do. Another tenet to the Yin practice is called playing our edge. And that means that in each shape that we go to, there's going to be a natural stopping point where we can't go any deeper in the pose. And that space we want to play with. So we don't want to force it. We're not trying to like tug our way or pull our way deeper into the poses. What we're really looking for is a somewhat of a curiosity and a surrender at our stopping point. And because we're in the pose for some time, that natural stopping point usually shifts and changes throughout the course of the minutes that we're in the pose. Often it will take us deeper into the pose organically. Sometimes it actually requires our edge to back away. So we'll play our edge, and that's what we want to do. Breath is the third tenet, and we want to breathe in a way that our body wants to breathe us. So we're not necessarily practicing specific techniques of breathing. what we're feeling for is a natural breath. And natural breath can mean anything that comes forward from your body organically. So sometimes that might sound like a sigh or a deep breath, an audible breath. Sometimes it's very still and quiet and tender breathing. Sometimes it might come out like a sound or a yell or a laugh or a cry. However the body wants to breathe, let's support that. So that would be the third tenet of the Yin practice. The fourth and the final one is the way that we exit a pose. So not unlike life, the more time we spend in something, the more care it requires, or at least deserves, on the way out. So to not hurt ourselves on the way out, so that we can be more present for the next thing that we go into. And it's kind of a way to back out slowly and pay attention to the leaving versus where we're going next. And that's a beautiful metaphor for life, I find, especially in this quickly paced life that we're all living, or I'll speak for myself, that I'm living. And so it's nice to consider that the exit or the way out of something is just as important, sometimes even more important than being in it or the next thing that we go into, right? So we practice exiting with care. I call it the art of exit. So time in poses, right? Stay curious during that time, because who knows what can happen when we slow things down and take our time with things. Playing the edge, right? Just noticing where we have a desire to kind of not be where we are. Can we resource and connect to our present moment? And can we be with what is, even if it's not exactly where we want to be? Breath, right? Honoring the organic nature, the wisdom of our own body and our own breathing patterns, and then practicing the art of exit. Okay, so that's a lot, it's a mouthful. We're going to begin today in a wide leg straddle. And so finding your seat, maybe scooching back on your blanket if you're sitting on a blanket, taking a wide straddle with your legs. It does not have to be as wide as you can possibly go, but wide enough that you're taking some space between your legs. And then you may want to have your yoga block or even your bolster nearby to give yourself a little bit of a prop. What the props do is they raise the ground closer to meet us. So one of the things that I say in these postures is that we want to let the pose meet us where we are, instead of trying to force ourselves into a pose. So imagine that the pose exists, we're just meeting it, we're having a relationship, and it's an equal partnership. We move towards the pose meets us where we are. And props like the block or the bolster help to do that, because they just simply bring the ground closer to us. So we're going to take our wide leg straddle into a forward fold. So from the hips, feeling into walking ourselves forward, right? And then you can use your prop. Let's say one of the ways that we might use it if our natural stopping point is pretty upright is that we can lean our forearms and elbows on the prop and then just bow the head and relax into it. Remembering that this stopping point isn't the final place, right? Maybe in a minute or so, we may turn the block lower. If this is too high for you and you naturally and organically want to go lower to the earth, then move the block or your prop out of the way and let yourself hold forward. Also, right, feeling into bowing your head, relaxing into it as much as possible, breathing naturally and staying present to the experience that you're having. Not necessarily of the posture itself, but the experience that you are having of you while you're in this shape. We'll be here for about another minute and a half. So just allowing yourself to be in this shape. If it's possible, or if it's comfortable for you, just close your eyes. Go inward perhaps and track some of the sensations that you're feeling. This posture might bring about many physical sensations, emotional as well. It may be a place of comfort for you where you can simply drop in and let the earth's pull support the experience that you're having right now. The play that we have between effort and ease, between action and surrender. And if at any point you want to sigh or make some noise, feel free to do so. Perhaps following sensation, maybe not all of the different things that you feel, but picking one physical sensation, whether it's in a knee or a foot or the back of the neck. Almost like you're getting to learn its behavior, just being with it. Noticing how it moves, this feeling in the body may or may not move or shape shift inside. Maybe even noticing if it has a temperature or color. And just so you know, I'll be checking on the clock occasionally. So there are going to be moments where I lift up from the posture, but you can stay in. I'll speak our way out when it's time. Let's take 5 more breaths in this shape. Leaning a little heavier into the prop, maybe seeing if for these last couple breaths, there's a new edge to play with. Maybe it's backing out a little, or perhaps it's letting gravity have you for the next 3 breaths. And so practicing that tender art of exit, first maybe taking your gaze forward a little bit, lifting your head. Eventually using your hands on the ground, right? To start to walk yourself slowly until you're upright again. And when you do get there, just taking a moment to integrate, right? To let the experience that we just had in that forward fold to kind of recalibrate, find its way through the physical body, the mental, emotional body. Maybe even swallowing to digest the experience. And then just a gentle counter pose. Let's walk our hands behind us, leaning into the hands in back of your seat. You can keep your palms flat or make fists if that's more comfortable for you. And then let yourself kind of lean into your arms, almost as if they were kickstands on a bike. And then drawing your shoulder blades together, lifting your chest up, maybe taking your gaze upward, opening your eyes really wide. You can even open the tongue, the mouth, and stick out your tongue. Maybe move your face around. And then eventually walking your hands back towards your legs so that you're sitting upright and using your hands to support as you shape shift your legs and change coming out of your wide leg straddle and finding butterfly pose, taking the bottoms of your feet to touch your knees out to the side. And often we want to pull our heels really close to the groin, but for this yin butterfly, let's keep the heels far away so that if you were to look down in between your legs, you would see more of a diamond shape than a triangle. Before we go into our next official yin posture, let's take a gentle seated spinal twist. So draw your right arm behind you and lean into it, somewhere close to your spine. And then with your left hand, just give a gentle pressing down of your hand to your inner left knee. Just very gently press your knee not only closer to the ground, but kind of away from you towards that like far left corner of your room. And as you do that, let's take a big breath in, get tall through the spine. And then as we exhale, just taking a gentle twist over to your right, maybe even taking your gaze past your right shoulder. On your exhale, just a gentle muscular hug, low belly to spine. Really nice. Inhaling, let's come back to center. Maybe shake out your hands a little bit. And then let's draw the left hand behind us, using that left arm like a kickstand, walking your hand close back towards the spinal line if you can. And if you need to bring it a few inches back so that you can lean into the arm, that's fine. But feeling for a tall spine from your tailbone all the way to the crown of the head. Right hand on the inside of your right knee so that you can gently press the knee towards the ground and also towards that far right corner of your room. And even before you move into the twist, root down through your seat, reach up through your crown. And then on the exhale, turning over your left shoulder. You don't have to turn the head as far as you can go. It might actually feel nice to keep your chin centered to your chest. Or if it's okay on the neck, gazing past your left shoulder. Breathing in. Breathing out. Gentle muscular hug. And next inhale, coming back to center. Just take a moment to maybe roll your shoulders up, back, and down, wiggle. And then we're going to move into the second longer hold. And what I suggest is taking your hands palms up and then sliding them underneath your calves. You can either just hold on to your shins, or it may be more comfortable if you can come into that forward fold, if that feels correct for you, to fold a little deeper and slide the crook of your elbows underneath your legs. And then once again, letting your head bow. I'll keep a check-in on our time. Once you get your arms through your legs, if it's more comfortable to let your palms flip down, do so. And we'll be in this butterfly pose for 3 minutes. Maybe for the entire 3 minutes, just focusing on the count or the natural count of your breathing. How many counts is your inhale? How many counts is your exhale? Can you notice when you do breathe in, like where that breath goes to in the body? Like, does it travel? Does it stay close up towards the upper chest? Does your breath make its way to your back body, the outsides of your legs, or even your feet? Can you watch your breath in your back, like almost as if the ribs were gills on a fish? Each inhale, there's just a natural expansion or flapping open. And each exhale, there's just a natural, very gentle coming in. And we also notice how naturally there's a pause for kind of a floaty space at the very top of each inhale. And there's another one, a little pause or even kind of an emptiness at the bottom of each exhale. Even though we're breathing fluidly, we're not consciously stopping our breath at inhale and exhale. We're just watching how there is a little space, there's an in-between space between the top of the inhale and the beginning of the exhale. And also between the bottom of the exhale and the beginning of the next inhale. It's comfortable for you. Keep your eyes closed. Maybe there's a new edge to play with for the last 5 or 7 breaths that will be here. You might find yourself, if you can undo or unhinge, you may get a little, I don't know, a little bit more intimate with the floor or your prop. Perhaps it's the opposite. Inhaling and exhaling, that's enough. That's a huge, courageous act, just to breathe and pay attention. Next inhale, just start to take your gaze forward. And maybe gently, carefully sliding your arms out from underneath your shins, one at a time. And very slowly walking upright, taking your time, right? Exiting carefully. And when you find yourself sitting upright, take a moment to integrate a couple of breaths. I find that moistening my mouth and swallowing really helps. It's like digesting the experience that we've just had. And then again, taking our hands behind us, leaning into our straight arms, maybe expanding the chest, opening up the front of the throat, looking up. If it's comfortable for your neck, let your head drop back and even arc, exaggerate the arc of your low back, your lumbar spine. Taking a big breath in. And a courageous breath out. Good, and then sitting upright, let's take our hands to our legs and bring the bottoms of the feet to the floor, knees to the sky. And before we transition to tabletop position, once again, leaning into your hands and maybe opening up your feet a little bit wider, just taking some windshield wipers from side to side. Ooh, it's got a nice adjustment. So as your knees go to your right, you can look over to your left. And as your knees go to your left, you can gaze over to your right. Let's do a few more cycles here. Kind of following that natural pattern of the animal body that we have an experience. For better or for worse, whatever the experience it is. And then we move so that we can allow that experience to kind of be integrated, digested, kind of even the parts of that experience that didn't serve us, we might be able to just kind of wiggle them out of the body so that we can pull out the nourishment from our life experiences and perhaps let go of the waste or the things that don't serve us as well. And we're going to shape shift onto knees and I like to use a blanket to support the knees. So you may want to take your blanket or your towel and place it about 3/4 towards the back of your mat. Walk your knees onto your blanket so that you have some extra padding, and let's keep our toes tucked under. We may even sit back onto the heels and walk that baby toe underneath so that it too is curled under. Just taking a moment to do our very best to sit back on the heels. If you need a little release, just lift your hips up. Our poor feet, right? Holding and supporting us all day long. And sometimes we forget to give it a little nourishment, especially if we spend a lot of time in shoes. I want to kind of tenderize the feet a bit. About 3 more breaths here. And today's practice will be a short yin practice. Usually when I teach a class in person or online, it's anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes long. Today's practice will be just a mini practice. Enough of a practice, but a shorter one that, that I might do on a given day. This is something that you can return to over and over as much as it serves you. Good. Let's walk our hands forward. And when we get to tabletop position where our shoulders are over our wrists, let's untuck the toes and flatten the tops of the feet to the mat. And then once again, walk back to sit on the heels. Same as before. If you need a little release, just lift your hips up. If you want a little bit more of a stretch for the bottoms of your feet, walk your hands back and then lift your hips up a bit off your heels, stretching the front of your thighs. And then placing our seat back down, let's take our hands, tenting the fingers somewhere around the knees or a little further back. And then if possible, press the tops of your feet to the mat and lift your knees up off your blanket. Very intense for the front of the feet. Deep connection to earth, right? Every step we take on Great Mother Earth's back is like a drumbeat of devotion, not only to her, but for our existence. Right? Supporting that vibration of walking on the earth supports our bone health, the way we walk into our life. Good. On the exhale, set the knees down. Let's walk the hands forward. And keeping our heads somewhat over the knees, we're going to continue to walk the hands forward and a little wider. And eventually feeling into lifting the tailbone high to the sky, wag the tail a little bit. And over the next several breaths, feeling into letting your face, right, maybe the forehead and your chest, hang out like a suspension bridge towards the earth. This is a little bit of a shorter hold. We'll be here for just 1 minute. It can be very intense on your shoulders, on the upper back. As much as possible, let your belly muscles go and allow your organs to kind of hang out in the hammock of your skin. Let gravity take you. And at the same time, keeping the sit bones wide and towards the tailbone towards the sky. We'll take 5 to 7 natural breaths here, reminding ourselves that we meet our edge and then we stay curious there. We play with it a little bit. Maybe there's more dropping in. Maybe there's a gentle lifting away. We want the pose to meet us, not the other way around. On your next inhale, press into the palms and take your gaze forward. And we're going to shift, just letting our shoulders come further towards the front of our mat until we can lay our thighs down and then the front of our pelvis down. Make a little pillow for your head. Ooh, shoulders, hello. And rest the head on your hands. From here, we're going to take our time to set up for Spanx Pose. So let's widen our legs like a big fishtail, right, between our feet. And then shake out your seat a little bit, just to make sure that we're not squeezing the muscles of our glutes and we're letting our legs kind of be like slow cooked, really loose on the bone. And slow it down, and then feeling into just getting a gentle rooting of your pubic bone towards the earth. Doesn't have to be exaggerated where you squeeze your seat, just enough so that there's contact. And then we're going to walk our elbows right underneath our shoulders. Forearms and hands straight in front of each elbow, like a sphinx. And just for a breath or two, use your hands on the earth like you're trying to pull the front of your mat towards the back of the mat. Notice how you can kind of expand out or blossom across your chest and collarbones. And then from here, maybe you can draw your shoulder blades a little closer into your back body. And then take that effort out. Let yourself kind of sink towards the elbows, and the elbows sink towards the floor, belly loose. And your choice, you can keep your gaze neutral, looking, I would say, about 2 or 3 feet in front of you on the earth. Or maybe completely let your head drop so that you get some of that connective tissue in the back of the neck and the skull stretching. Do your very best not to grip your seat, so just allowing your glutes to be soft. We'll be here for 2 to 3 minutes. I will offer a modification at some point about midway. For those who may want more back bendiness or more spinal extension. But this is a great place to stay. Let's go back to that tracking the sensation. Almost like you're kind of following an animal in the woods, getting to know its behavior. So although we might have multiple sensations going on right now, can we pick just one? One physical feeling that we can kind of stand behind and follow instead of holding on to or capturing. More staying inquisitive of the experience we're having versus trying to hold on to it and make sense of it. Or even worse, judge it. Breathing naturally. And for those who might want a little bit more, you can try, and if it doesn't work for you, always come back to the elbows. Press into the hands and maybe feel into lifting your forearms and elbows off the mat. And it may require you to walk your hands back a couple of inches so that you can get some traction there. And once you have it, let yourself rest into the arm bones like you have been doing all practice, almost like they are kickstands on the bike. And again, let the head be very bowling ball heavy if that works for your neck. You like the spaciousness that it might offer in the stretch in the back of your neck and your skull. If that doesn't feel good for you because we've done that shape multiple times today, just take your gaze straight ahead, neutral. So there's no crease in the back of the neck, but it's nice and long, and just giving yourself an opportunity to gaze ahead, a soft gaze, a few feet in front of you on the earth. Soft seat, soft belly. Legs are there, but they're just there for you to keep you connected to the ground, not necessarily to use in shape. It's okay if the shoulders right up to your ears. Sometimes that offers some release in the back of the neck. If your arms are straight, just very slowly taking one elbow down and then the other, and pause there for a breath. And we're all going to just walk our elbows wide, stack our hands, and once again, rest the face on your hands. Just let your entire back muscles release. And then pressing your palms underneath your shoulders, slowly gliding back onto your knees, letting your seat go way back to your heels for Balasana, child's pose. And we want to have the knees really wide here, big toes touching. Slowly rising. And just simply taking your time to walk your knees off your blanket. And then we're going to take that blanket and bring it into a roll for our final restorative posture, coming onto our backs. Before we do so though, taking your blanket or your towel in the roll and then sliding it underneath your knees. Letting your knees widen. Your heels might be turning in towards one another with the toes turning away. And then just take a moment to wing your shoulder blades together in your back and then let your upper back comfortably land on the floor. Arms might open as well, palms open. If it's comfortable for you, close your eyes for a moment. Fully allowing the short practice, this short yin practice, to just settle into the pores of your skin, settle into your energetic body, your muscles, joints, even the marrow of your bones. Just checking in just a little bit, like, how does it feel to slow things down and pay attention? You can stay right here. I'm going to transition to sitting so that I can read something. But just simply letting yourself get heavier and heavier to the earth. And giving yourself this time to just be here. This is a poem called The Round. It's by Stanley Kunitz, my grandpa. The Round. Light splashed this morning on the shell pink anemones, swaying on their tall stems. Down blue spiked veronica, light flowed in rivulets over the humps of the honeybees. This morning, I saw light kiss the silk of the roses in their second flowering. My late bloomers, flushed with their brandy. A curious gladness shook me. So I have shut the doors of my house. So I have trudged downstairs to my cell. So I am sitting in semi-dark, hunched over my desk, with nothing for a view to tempt me, but a bloated compost heap, steamy old stink pile under my window. And I pick up my notebook and I start to read aloud the still wet words I scribbled on blotted paper. Light splashed. I can scarcely wait until tomorrow, when a new life begins for me, as it does each day, as it does each day. Allowing your next breath in to be a little fuller. And exhaling through the mouth, letting out a little sound. Making some micro movements through your fingers and your toes. Maybe even letting the back of your skull move a bit side to side on the back of your mat or on your mat. You can increase your movements a little bit, maybe even taking your arms up overhead and stretching, sending your palms away, drawing your legs a little closer together, squeezing your bum, the arc of your back lift. And then soften, relax, let yourself roll to one side. Very slowly, tenderly, making your way towards your seat. And we can meet over there. Once you find your seat, just taking a moment to draw the palms together in prayer. Thank you so much for your time, for your compassion towards your movement and your curiosity. I hope to see you again. Maybe I'll be adding a few more classes to this YouTube page or to my website, but stay in touch, please. Okay, thank you. Have a beautiful day. Bye.